Turn to Genesis chapter 1. It starts in the beginning. In the beginning, God. You can't go back any further than that. There in the beginning, the eternal God, the omniscient God, the omnipotent God. Someone has said if you can accept the first verse in the Bible, you should have no problem with anything else. If you get the right concept of God, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Just when was that? We really don't know. How old is the universe? We really don't know. What existed before our universe? We really don't know. Talking about the day of creation is interesting. There were times when they said that matter was eternal and the universe was eternal, but then we realized that the universe is actually gradually deteriorating. The sun loses 1,200,000 tons of mass per second, and the other stars the same. So the universe is gradually winding down. And will there be one day when it'll flicker out? I don't know. I expect to be around, but I don't know just how it's going to happen. Peter sort of describes it for us in a way, but it'll be an interesting thing. In the beginning, God created. The word create there is bara. And the word bara in Hebrew indicates to create something out of nothing. In the beginning, God, out of nothing, created the heaven and the earth. Now, there is an alternative to this. It is invented by man. And they say that it's a little bit too difficult to understand or to grasp the idea, in the beginning, God created. And thus they say, in the beginning was a small mass of energy about the size of a dried pea, and that energy exploded in a big bang, and the whole universe came out of that one compacted dried pea of energy. Is that easier for you to grasp? When you look at the size of the universe and, even our just solar system, even the earth itself, can you imagine that it was once compacted into a small little bit of matter the size of a dried pea? They didn't help me at all. It's a lot easier for me to believe in the beginning there is a God, all-powerful, all-knowing, eternal, who created bara out of nothing, the heavens and the earth. But the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved or brooded over the face of the waters. And then begins the assembling, or the creative acts of God in assembling and making the world habitable for man whom he will create. Creating the environmental conditions and all that was necessary so that man could exist on this planet Earth. Placing it just the right distance from the sun. Causing it to revolve just at the right speed. And so many factors. Causing it to be just the right size so that it would hold the atmosphere in, and all of the variables that were necessary for the earth to be habitable by man. And God is assembling and creating these things. But it's interesting, rather than the word bara, out of nothing, the word is asa, and it means to assemble or to from the things that were created to now to reassemble it so that it would make a proper habitation for man. So we have in Genesis chapter 1 the story of how that God was creating the earth so man could inhabit it. In the first day, the light, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Instantaneous. Yahior wa Yahior. Let there be light, and light was. And God saw the light, that it was good. And he divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, day one. Now the question is, were these days 24-hour days, or were they periods of geological time? In other words, was the first day taking place over a period of hundreds of thousands or millions of years? From the reading, it wouldn't seem that that was necessary. In fact, improbable, because it was evening and it was morning. Now, it is interesting to note it was evening and it was morning, because we don't find the sun being placed in its position until the fourth day of creation. But still you have the evening and the morning, which could mean that the sun was there and giving light. Evening and morning, the earth was rotating on its axis, and yet the darkness that was upon the earth at night, and the cloud cover perhaps over the earth so thick that the sun and the stars were not visible from the earth, the possibility. God said, "Let there be a firmament," rakia, a limitless expanse in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and it was evening and morning, the second day. It would seem that there was once a great amount of water in the heavens or in the atmosphere, much greater than we see today. It didn't rain, but at night the earth would be covered with the water from the atmosphere. And if you think about that, it's interesting because with that much water suspended in the atmosphere, it would sort of create a even climate around the world. It would mean that up at the North Pole, there wouldn't be this ice and snow mass. It means that in Siberia, rather than the frozen tundra, there would be sort of a tropical kind of a forest and so forth. And in light of that, it is interesting that they have discovered mammoths there in Siberia, in the tropical tundra, in the frozen tundra, but the animals that they discovered actually had tropical vegetation in their digestive tracts. And they were frozen solid in that tundra, which would indicate a sudden freezing, which would indicate also anybody else want to leave? Your opportunity now. Leave now or forever. Hold your peace. That they were suddenly frozen, and At the South Pole,